He who speaks truth declares righteousness, but a false witness deceit. There is one who speaks like the piercings of a sword, but the tongue of the wise promotes health. The truthful lip shall be established forever, but a lying tongue is but for a moment. Deceit is in the heart of those who devise evil, but counsellors of peace have joy. No grave trouble will overtake the righteous, but the wicked shall be filled with evil. Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who deal truthfully are his delight. My name's Arthur, and these words come from Proverbs chapter 12, verses 17 to 22, a bracket where Solomon is speaking about the tongue, about the lips that speak truth or falsehood, that encourage or discourage, and how it can be used for good or for bad. Today we'll look at verse 18 in particular, which speaks of two aspects of this. There is one who speaks like the piercings of a sword, but the tongue of the wise promotes health. And verse 20, which reads, Deceit is in the heart of those who devise evil, but counsellors of peace have joy. And so we are thinking about the outcome of the words that we speak. Some speak and their words hurt. I was brought up on the saying, sticks and stones will break your bones, but names will never hurt you. But I've come to realise that that's not a true statement, because names do hurt. They may not hurt physically, but they hurt spiritually. And so we have the one who speaks like the piercing of a sword. That's saying, to speak bad words to a person can be as bad as stabbing them with a sword. But words can also be words of health, words of healing. The tongue of the wise promotes health. So we need to learn what to say so that our words build up and not destroy. Deceit is in the heart of those who devise evil. So when people are devising evil, they are thinking, what can I say which sounds good, but in fact is wrong, gives me the advantage. That's the evil approach. But counsellors of peace have joy. There are those whose motivation is not their own gain, but the benefit and blessing of others. They're not engaging in the conversation to get an advantage for themselves. They're engaging in the conversation to bless their hearers. Well, what does Jesus have to say about the subject? In the Sermon on the Mount, he says, You have heard that it was said, You shall love your neighbour and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. For he makes his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? Therefore you shall be perfect, just as your Father in heaven is perfect. So Jesus is instructing us not to curse, but to bless in the things that we say. That is, we say words that encourage, that comfort, that inform, rather than words that discourage, that condemn, that mislead. And we are to pray for those who spitefully use you. So this is words directed to God, and no doubt to others, for the benefit of those who spitefully use us. In other words, do not use your words to punish somebody, but use your words to win them to the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, Paul followed that same principle in dealing with Gentiles. His response to them was not to condemn them, but to seek to win them for Christ. In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, he says, All things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but not all things edify. Let no one seek his own, but each one the other's well-being. Whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. Now concerning things offered to idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffs up, but love edifies. And if anyone thinks that he knows anything, he knows nothing, yet as he ought to know. But if anyone loves God, this one is known by him. The phrase knowledge puffs up, but love edifies. So we can know things and use that knowledge to gain advantage over others. Or we can know things and use that knowledge to encourage and build up others. We are to love, not to show off our knowledge, not to boast of how our understanding is superior to somebody else, but rather to deal with other people in a way that builds them up. So in that great passage in chapter 14, speaking about the gifts, he says, pursue love, desire spiritual gifts, and especially that you may prophesy. For he who speaks in a tongue, that's in a foreign language, does not speak to men but to God, for no one understands him. However, in the Spirit he speaks mysteries. But he who prophesies speaks edification and exhortation and comfort to men. And of course, this is therefore what he's urging us to do, to speak words of edification, words of exhortation, words of comfort, not words of condemnation. And so to the Ephesians he says, let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification, that it may impart grace to the hearers. So we want to speak words that encourage, that edify, that build up. As the proverb said, there is one who speaks like the piercing of a sword, but the tongue of the wise promotes health. Deceit is in the heart of those who devise evil, but counselors of peace have joy. First of all, let's think of Job. Job's friends came to help him in his distress, but they couldn't help but condemn him. They kept saying to him, these bad things have happened to you because you have done something wrong. You must confess your sin, and God will forgive you and cleanse you and fix everything up. Now, Job knew that he was not perfect, for no one is perfect, but he also knew that he had not rebelled against God. He had not acted in a way to cause God's wrath to come upon him. And so it was not because of his disobedience that these things had happened to him. But his friends who spoke to him, their words were like the piercing of a sword. Rather than easing his discomfort, they added to it. Job responds, to him who is afflicted, kindness should be shown by his friend, even if he forsakes the fear of the Almighty. And again, I have heard many such things, Job says. Miserable comforters are you all. Shall words of wind have an end? Or what provokes you that you answer? I also could speak as you do, if your soul were in my soul's place. I could heap up words against you, and shake my head at you. But I would strengthen you with my mouth, and the comfort of my lips would relieve your grief. And so they lacked wisdom, and in the end God reprimands them for the way that they counsel Job. The Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, my wrath is aroused against you and your two friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. Now therefore take for yourselves 7 bulls and 7 rams. Go to my servant Job and offer up for yourselves a burnt offering, and my servant Job shall pray for you, for I will accept him, lest I deal with you according to your folly, because you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. And so Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite went and did as the Lord commanded them, for the Lord had accepted Job. The tongue of the wise promotes health.